I tried to dry my wet socks in the office microwave, smoked out the whole building, and earned the nickname Hot Socks. I don't usually think of myself as a main character, because main characters don't spend 6 minutes every morning arguing with a bike lock like it's a cursed puzzle box from a fantasy novel. But on the day I became Hot Socks, the universe decided to hand me a script, a spotlight, and a laugh track. The morning started the way smug people start mornings, virtue first. I ride my bike to work, not because I'm saving the planet, bonus, or saving money, double bonus, or because I enjoy pretending I'm in a wholesome coffee commercial, some days I do. Mostly I ride because it keeps me just barely on the polite side of desk chair rigidity. If I don't move my body before I stare at spreadsheets, I calcify into a lowercase RR. The sky, at 7:12 a.m., looked as trustworthy as a politician with 2 umbrellas. There was that metallic smell in the air, the one that says, "I am a cloud filled with choices you won't like." I checked the weather app. The app said light showers. The sky said bet. I put on my helmet, clipped one pant leg with a cuff strap, and gave myself a brave nod in the reflection of my building's glass door. A damp superhero whose power is being a little late but with cardio. The first 5 minutes of the ride were fine. Cool breeze, a smug drizzle that wasn't committed to anything. I cranked up the playlist, glided past the bakery that weaponizes butter at 6 a.m., waved at the crossing guard who never waves back, and thought about the small joy of dry socks. Then, as if some director yelled, "Rain cue!" a wall of water fell from the clouds. Not a shower, not a sprinkle, a sky bucket dump. The first splat hit my scalp, slid down under my helmet, and took up residence in my left ear like a small goldfish exploring a new bowl. The second wave went straight for my shoes. My socks, previously cozy, did the emotional equivalent of screaming. I pedaled harder, which is what prey animals do when the weather decides to evolve teeth. Tires cut through bright mirror puddles. Whoosh! My shins were instantly decorated with mud hieroglyphs. A bus swooshed past and gave me a baptism in wheel spray. I learned that water can be cold, wet, and personal. There's a special kind of misery that belongs only to soaked socks. Wet sleeves are annoying. Wet hair is an aesthetic challenge. Wet socks? That's medieval. Each squelch in the shoe is a letter of resignation from the soul. By the time I hit the bike path along the river, my feet were 2 brined sponges auditioning for a role as ruined. Somewhere around minute 12, I made peace with it. Peace is the thing you make with suffering when you realize you can't fight a cloud. The rain slowed, then mocked me by stopping as if it had achieved its single objective: defeat. I rode the last stretch under a gray sky that was now apparently finished ruining lives, and I started bargaining. Maybe the office dryer. No, we don't have one. Space heater under my desk? HR, paper towels in the restroom? That's many, and I'd need a safety briefing. A hand dryer? I pictured myself balancing on one foot with a sock drooped over the mouth like a sad puppet. The image comforted me in a way that should probably alarm a therapist. I pulled into the bike cage behind our building, locked my stubborn U-lock with a little extra swearing for good measure, and squished my way to the back entrance like a small pond that learned to walk. The security guard looked at my shoes and then at me, as if wondering which one to address. "Rough one," he said. "Baptism by precipitation," I said, because I am the sort of person who uses too many syllables when I'm cold. The elevator ride was the soft hum of 1,000 office workers' compromises. On floor 4, our reception desk burst with plants that had better skin than I do. The office was already in that quiet pre-coffee hum. Keyboards clacking with the energy of first emails. Per my last. Attaching again. Quick nudge on this. I squelched across the carpet like a menace. At my desk, I peeled off my bag and inspected the damage. Jeans, damp but workable. Shirt, moody. Shoes, a bog. Socks, sentient, furious. I wrung one out discreetly into my plant's little watering tray. The plant looked at me like, "Sir." "Don't judge me," I whispered. My coworkers trickled in. Sarah arrived with a latte and the patience of a kindergarten teacher. Rob wore a hoodie like he'd invented the concept. Mia had a new haircut that everyone would compliment at staggered intervals throughout the day, because that is how office culture functions. I kept my feet tucked under my chair on the chair mat like cold little secrets. There's a particular employee I become when I'm uncomfortable. The one who fixates on solutions like they're the last bag of chips in the vending machine. I opened a Slack note to myself and typed, "Operations, sock recovery plan." Bullet 1, paper towels, inelegant, ineffective, too many. Bullet 2, hand dryer. Dignity risk, logistics questionable. Bullet 3, space heater, illegal since 2016, immortal in my heart. Bullet 4, microwave. You know those thoughts that begin as a joke and then, through repetition, stop being funny and start being plausible? That was microwave. I'd seen the sales team microwave winter gloves last year after a snowball fight during lunch. There had been giggling and a faint smell of hot wool, but the gloves had warmed up and no one complained. Except our CFO, who complained professionally about everything, including jokes. Microwave nudged at the edges of my mind like a cat paw at 3 a.m. It's just heat, I thought, as if heat weren't a tricky, untrustworthy element that has rules and consequences and fire marshals. 2 minutes, my inner negotiator said. Low power, my inner scientist added, even though I have never in my life used a microwave's power settings on purpose. Anyway, I told myself, I wouldn't be the first. Gloves happened, once, years ago. Also, I would monitor. I would be responsible. I would not, for example, throw them in and walk away. Foreshadowing is rude, so I refused to hear it. For a while, I tried to do normal work with my feet marinating. I answered an email with a level of professionalism that deserved dry socks. Thanks for flagging. Looping in the team. I checked a spreadsheet. The cells blurred as my toes found new ways to be miserable. Wet turned cold. Cold turned tingly. Tingly turned into a philosophical question about why toes exist at all. I tried to put on my "this is fine" face, but "this is fine" faces are most effective when not wearing a puddle. I excused myself from my desk like I was going to the bathroom and instead detoured to the break room. If the office is a habitat, the break room is the watering hole where all animals pretend to be chill. Ours has a long counter with a sink, a mid-range coffee machine that whines like a violin, a refrigerator labeled "not a science experiment," and 2 microwaves stacked like friendly robots. Above them is a laminated sign, "No fish." Somewhere, someone once microwaved fish, and policy was born. I tested the room like a burglar. Empty. The hum of the fridge was my alibi. The left microwave had a digital clock stuck at 8888 in that passive-aggressive way appliances do when they want you to know time is a construct. The right one was newer, with a satisfying click and the boldness of a start button that believes in itself. I looked down at my socks, still on my feet. The thought of exposing bare feet to a work floor felt like crossing a social Rubicon. But the alternative was trench foot. I slid my shoes off under the counter, wrung the first sock as discreetly as one can wring a sock, and was amazed at the amount of water a small piece of fabric can store. I whispered an apology to the sink. The second sock performed the same grotesque magic trick. They slumped in my hands, pale gray, ribbed, innocent. The break room door hissed open and I nearly flung the socks into the ceiling like startled spaghetti. It was just Alex from IT, a gentleman whose aura is, "I will fix this and also your self-esteem." He poured coffee, blinked at my sock tableau, and processed it with admirable equanimity. "Rough commute?" he said. "Understatement of the year," I said. He sipped, considered. "Hand dryer?" I thought about it. He nodded like a therapist. "That's a process." I gestured vaguely at the microwaves in a way that I hoped communicated, "I've heard of them. I do not intend to use them for crimes." Alex's eyes flicked to the laminated "no fish" sign, then to the socks, then back to me. "Well," he said in a tone that contained layers of meanings, including, "I won't be a witness if it comes to that." He left, and with him went my last tether to dignity. I placed the socks on a paper towel, trying to pat them like a kindly aunt drying tears. The texture surprised me. More synthetic than I'd registered at 6 a.m. when I'd yanked them from the drawer. Polyester blend. Stretchy, sturdy, soldierly. In my mind, these characteristics translated to resilient to heat, because that is how delusion dresses itself up. To stall, I made tea. The kettle burbled. I watched steam curl upward and thought of evaporation in a fond academic way. Steam is just water doing a magic trick. Evaporation is patience. Microwaves are fast patience. I told myself that and immediately felt how wrong it sounded. The break room clock ticked louder than it had a right to. My toes, now bare and pale, hid inside my shoes like they were peeking from a cave mouth. I ran my thumb over the inside of a sock and felt the cling of wet fibers. I imagined walking around the office with squishy feet for hours. I imagined the slow, creeping chill that would coil around my ankles like fog under a stage door. I imagined the email I would write, in that tone of polite suffering, about best practices for commuting on rainy days. And then I imagined the opposite, a 2-minute miracle. A crisp sock, a secret triumph, a private warmth. Reader, I decided to become a microwave pioneer. I folded each sock in half, then in half again, so they formed compact little gray croissants. I used the top microwave, the newer one, the one with confidence. I opened its door. Inside was clean, which unnerved me because it felt like it was judging my choices in advance. I placed the socks on the glass turntable, equidistant, like I was arranging a ritual offering to the gods of poor decisions. I hovered over the buttons. 1 minute? 2? I remembered the glove situation. Someone had said a minute. But that was warming, not drying. Drying is a different verb. Drying might need more. I pressed 2 saw because round numbers are comforting. My finger hovered over power level, but I didn't press it, because this is the kind of hubris that gets people written about in office folklore. Before I hit start, I reached instinctively for a paper towel and draped it loosely over the socks. Why? It felt like something baking shows do, and therefore science. Also symbolic modesty, perhaps. I glanced at the door. Empty hall. I looked at the camera in the corner. Fake? Real? And assumed it was too busy not recording bad life choices to care. I told myself I would stand right here and watch. I would not abandon the station. I would be a responsible operator of household technology. The microwave hummed in that warm domestic way that suggests everything is fine. I set my tea on the counter, cracked my knuckles, and breathed the brave air of a person who is about to pretend to know what they're doing. The start button felt decisive under my finger. The display sprang to life. 2 Sexter, 159, 158. The turntable glided. The socks made their slow rotation, 2 gray moons orbiting a very bad idea. At 155, I thought, this is ridiculous and brilliant. At 153, I thought, I should check Slack because my brain hates peace. At 1:51, I stepped to the doorway, leaned out to the hall, and peered left and right like a raccoon in a kitchen. At 1:49, a little voice in the back of my skull, the one that sounds like a middle school science teacher, said, "Polyester is plastic." Another voice, louder, said, "Tea." I took a sip. It was perfect. Warm, calm, ordinary. I smiled at the microwave like we were co-conspirators. I glanced at the display again, 1:45, and felt the silly, fizzy pride of someone who has cheated the weather with household appliances and audacity. I promised myself I'd stay right there until it finished. And then, because I am the kind of person who can be distracted by the sound of a distant stapler, I remembered an email I'd meant to send. A quick little thing. 30 seconds. Tops. I took 3 casual steps toward the hallway, tea in hand, telling myself I was still basically in the break room, spiritually adjacent. I'd be right back. The socks were rotating with the grace of ballerinas. What could happen in a few seconds? The microwave hummed, obedient and bright. I left the break room. The thing about leaving a microwave unsupervised is that it's like leaving a toddler with paint. Something will happen, and it won't be art. I had sworn to myself I would stay put. 2 minutes? What was that? The length of one Slack message thread. A bathroom break. A polite conversation about the weather. But when I remembered that little email draft sitting half-finished in my inbox, I thought, 30 seconds tops. Just enough time to send it before anyone else piled on with per my last attachments. So I slipped out of the break room, tea in hand, telling myself I was still basically there. Spiritually present. Socks spinning, life improving. Back at my desk, I pulled up the draft. It was one of those looping-in emails that require the diplomatic balance of a UN resolution. I was halfway through polishing a sentence when it hit me. A faint smell. At first, it was barely there, like the ghost of a campfire. My brain dismissed it. Offices smell weird all the time. Printer ink, burnt toast, that one co-worker's cologne that suggests he bathes in cedarwood oil. I typed another line. The smell grew sharper. Burnt hair mixed with wet dog. A chemical tang. My brain pinged, polyester is plastic. And plastic, when heated, becomes less clothing and more crime scene. I froze. Slowly, I looked up. Across the aisle, Mia wrinkled her nose. Rob sniffed the air like a bloodhound. Sarah, latte in hand, muttered, "Do you smell something?" Panic began to bloom in my chest. I shoved back from my desk, tea sloshing dangerously, and sprinted, yes, sprinted, in office shoes down the hallway. The smell was unmistakable now, a throat-scraping reek that coated the air. I shoved open the break room door. Smoke, not thick, but enough. Wisps curling out of the microwave seams like the world's saddest magician's trick. The paper towel I had so responsibly draped was browned at the edges. The socks, my poor, loyal socks, were sagging, melted at the tips, fused into shapes no laundry detergent could save. The display read 0:45. 45 seconds left. That meant they had been cooking for over a minute. A minute too long. I yanked open the door, waving my hand in a futile attempt to clear the smoke. A gust of burnt synthetic rushed out, attacking my sinuses. I grabbed the socks with another paper towel and dropped them into the sink, dousing them with cold water like they were hostages I was trying to revive. They hissed. Behind me, the microwave gave one last mechanical wheeze. And then, darkness. Dead. I had killed it. And then the worst sound possible. The building fire alarm. The blaring screech rattled the walls, turning my private shame into public spectacle. Red strobes began to flash. My heart plummeted. I stood there, hands dripping from the sink, holding what looked like 2 gray blobs of alien flesh. Around me, the break room lights pulsed in emergency rhythm. I thought, this is it. This is how legends are born. Not in glory. In polyester smoke, co-workers poured into the hallway, some coughing, some laughing nervously, most looking around like meerkats sniffing danger. "Where's the fire?" Someone shouted. "Do we evacuate? Is it electrical?" I wanted the floor to open up and swallow me. Instead, I had to do the walk of shame out of the break room, holding my dripping melted socks in a paper towel burrito, while the alarm screamed overhead. And that's how the entire office, every last person, ended up shivering in the parking lot, waiting for building management, while I rehearsed how I was going to confess that the Great Fire of 9:37 a.m. had been caused not by faulty wiring, not by a forgotten toaster, not by anything noble or tragic, but by my socks. There's a unique kind of humiliation that comes from standing outside your office building with 100 coworkers, all of them hugging themselves against the morning chill, while you clutch a soggy bundle of melted socks wrapped in paper towels like it's Exhibit A. The fire alarm howled overhead, echoing off glass and concrete. Red lights flashed inside the building. Our team gathered in the parking lot, shuffling in clusters, asking each other what had happened. Some were already texting spouses. Others were filming TikToks. I stood off to the side, trying to look inconspicuous, which is nearly impossible when you smell like a combination of campfire, melted Tupperware, and shame. Rob spotted me first. He sniffed the air like a suspicious dog, then narrowed his eyes. "Dude, was that you?" I swallowed. "Define that." Sarah, standing next to him, frowned. "You were in the break room, right? What did you do?" Before I could answer, the building manager marched toward us with the solemn determination of a man who had better things to do than deal with a microwave crime scene. clipboard in hand, fluorescent vest glowing like judgment itself, he barked, "All right, folks, what happened? Where's the source?" 100 heads turned. All eyes landed on me. I tried to disappear into my hoodie, but it turns out hoodies don't make you invisible. They just make you look guilty. The manager scanned the crowd. "Well," I opened my mouth, closed it, opened it again. I began, eloquent as always. "It was my socks." The silence was biblical. "Your socks," the manager repeated, each syllable dipped in disbelief. "Yes," I croaked. "I had tried to dry them." In the microwave, there was a collective inhale, followed by the kind of laughter that starts as a nervous chuckle and then snowballs into full-on hysteria. Sarah bent double. Rob wheezed. Even Mia, who had been silent up to this point, muttered, "Oh my God," like she was narrating a documentary about natural disasters. The manager blinked. Twice. "You put clothing in the microwave?" In my defense, I said weakly, "I thought it would be quick." "It was quick," Rob shot back. "Quickly catastrophic." More laughter. Phones were out now, recording my shame for future generations. Someone whispered, "Hot Socks," and the nickname stuck instantly, passed from mouth to mouth until the whole parking lot was chanting it like a football crowd. "Hot Socks! Hot Socks! Hot Socks!" I wished for meteor strikes. I wished for time machines. I wished for literally anything except standing barefoot in my work shoes with dripping polyester lumps in my hands while my co-workers cheered at my new identity. The manager pinched the bridge of his nose. "All right, microwave's trashed. We'll get maintenance on it. Everyone back inside once the alarm resets." He glared at me. "And you, no more cooking clothes." I nodded furiously. "Yes, sir. Absolutely, sir. Never again, sir." As we shuffled back in, Sarah leaned over and whispered, "You know this is never going away, right?" "I figured," I sighed. She grinned. Hot Socks. And with that, my fate was sealed. The fire alarm eventually stopped wailing, but my shame kept echoing long after the last red light faded. Back at our desks, the smell still lingered, a sour cocktail of burnt plastic and regret that no amount of Febreze could cover. The break room microwave sat there, door open, lifeless, like a crime scene left for investigators. HR didn't waste time. By lunchtime, an email landed in every inbox with the cheery subject line. Friendly reminder, kitchen appliance usage. The body of the message was less cheery. Please refrain from using company appliances for any purpose other than food preparation. Clothing, footwear, or other personal items are not permitted. Thank you for your cooperation. No names. No direct blame. But everyone knew. They didn't even need to know, because the smell told the story for me. By 2 p.m., the jokes had begun. "Hey, Hot Socks, want me to nuke my gloves for you? Careful, don't walk too close to the copier. He might try to dry his pants in it." "Bro, you invented the world's first sock-flavored Pop-Tarts." I tried to laugh along, because fighting a nickname only makes it stronger. But deep down, I knew I was branded. Some people get remembered for brilliant presentations, or closing huge deals, or heroic office saves. I would be remembered as the guy who smoked out the entire building with polyester socks. Even the janitor got in on it. When he passed my desk, he leaned down and said quietly, "You're lucky you didn't put underwear in there. That'd be an evacuation and a lawsuit." Then he winked and walked away, leaving me questioning the entire trajectory of my life. The microwave was hauled away that evening, covered with a plastic sheet like a fallen soldier. A new one arrived a week later, complete with an updated laminated sign above it. "No fish, no clothes, no exceptions. My legacy." Immortalized in laminated font. In the weeks that followed, I couldn't walk into the break room without someone muttering Hot Socks under their breath. During meetings, if the projector smoked slightly when warming up, everyone turned to look at me. Even the CEO, when he visited our floor, smirked and said, "Ah, so you're the one. Microwave man." And yet, strangely, I became popular. People who never spoke to me before now greeted me in the halls. My humiliation turned into a story, a bonding experience, a ridiculous legend that gave everyone something to laugh about in the middle of spreadsheets and endless email chains. At happy hour, someone bought me a drink and raised a toast to Hot Socks, the hero we didn't deserve but the one we needed. The bar erupted in cheers. And that's how I learned 2 things. Polyester should never meet microwaves. Sometimes your biggest screw-up becomes your biggest claim to fame. So yes, I'm still embarrassed. I still ride my bike to work, still risk the rain, still curse wet socks. But now, whenever I peel them off and wring them out, I smile just a little. Because no matter what else happens in my career, I know one thing for sure. I'll always be Hot Socks.